When Karen from the HOA kept secretly stealing power to charge her shiny Tesla, I warned her to stop. She laughed in my face. So, I set up a little surprise, a power surge waiting for her next free charge. What happened next? Her smug smile disappeared for good. The day Karen moved into our neighborhood, you could feel the tension shift like a cold wind blowing in before a storm. Her bright red Tesla rolled through the gates like it was a celebrity arrival, its glossy paint job gleaming under the afternoon sun, the soft hum of the electric motor barely audible yet somehow obnoxiously loud in its own way. I was standing on my porch sipping coffee, watching this woman, mid-40s, expensive sunglasses perched on her head, her lips curled in a smirk that said she already owned the place. Karen didn't introduce herself to anyone. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't even nod. Instead, she stepped out of the Tesla like she was stepping onto the red carpet, flicked her blonde hair over her shoulder, and surveyed the neighborhood as though she were inspecting property she had just bought at a foreclosure auction. Within 2 days, we all knew she was trouble. The HOA president, Dave, stopped by my place that evening with the usual gossip. "She just moved in," he said, shaking his head. "And she's already been complaining about people's lawns being an inch too long." I laughed, because Dave's lawn was the worst offender, the kind that looked like it hadn't been mowed since the Bush administration. But the real drama started the following week, when someone noticed Karen was plugging her Tesla into one of the HOA-maintained power outlets near the community center. It wasn't some occasional thing, like once in a while when she was desperate. No, this was every single night. She'd quietly sneak her car over there, park it like she owned the place, plug it in, and leave it overnight. Now, the power bill for the HOA comes out of all of our dues. It wasn't just that she was stealing electricity, it was that she was stealing from everyone. Dave brought it up at the next HOA meeting. "Karen," he said, trying to keep things civil, "we've noticed you've been using the community center outlet to charge your car. That's not what it's for. You can't just plug in whenever you want." Karen didn't even flinch. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and said with a sugary smile, "Well, the car is electric. I'm saving the environment. You're welcome." I nearly choked on my water. Saving the environment? She was running up the bill like it was her personal right. Dave tried again. "It's not about the environment. It's about the electricity bill. Everyone pays for that power. If you want to install a charger at your house, that's fine, but you can't just use the HOA's power for free." Karen's smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed. "Are you seriously nickel and diming me over electricity? I pay my dues like everyone else. Maybe if you budgeted better, this wouldn't be a problem." That was the moment I knew she was going to be a nightmare. Night after night, the same thing happened. She'd sneak out, plug in, leave the car there for hours. People started whispering about it during neighborhood walks. Someone suggested cutting off the power at night, but that would affect the security cameras. Others wanted to confront her directly, but after that HOA meeting, no one wanted to deal with her attitude. I kept watching from my porch, silently cataloging every time she did it. Then one evening, when I happened to be walking my dog, I saw Karen standing by the Tesla as it charged. I figured I'd be neighborly and casually bring it up. "Hey, Karen," I said. "You know the HOA's been talking about that outlet situation, right?" She turned slowly, her expression like I had just interrupted a royal ceremony. "And?" "Well," I said carefully, "people are saying it's kind of unfair. Everyone pays for that power, but you're the only one using it like this." Karen smirked. "You know how much it costs to charge this car? Practically nothing. It's pennies. If people are that cheap, maybe they shouldn't be living here." I stared at her. "It's the principle, Karen." "The principle," she repeated mockingly, rolling her eyes. "Look, I'm not stopping. If the HOA wants to install a meter and bill me separately, fine. Until then, maybe they should mind their own business." She unplugged the Tesla, slammed the cable back into the outlet, and drove off without another word. That was when something in me snapped. I'm not usually the revenge type. I'm a retired electrical engineer, the kind of guy who likes things neat, orderly, and fair. But Karen Karen had a way of digging under your skin like a splinter you can't ignore. I spent the next few days researching. See, electricity is funny. You can charge a car safely as long as the current stays steady. But a sudden surge? That's a whole different story, and I knew exactly how to make that happen. The next week, Karen's nightly routine continued like clockwork. She'd back her Tesla up to the outlet by the community center around 9 p.m., plug it in, and disappear into her house. By midnight, the battery would be juicing up on the HOA's dime while the rest of us fumed silently behind our curtains. Every morning, I'd wake up to see that car gleaming in the driveway like it was mocking us. There was no point bringing it up at HOA meetings anymore. Karen had shut everyone down the first time with that smug attitude. And Dave? He was too conflict-averse to push it further. That was fine, because the more Karen dismissed us, the more determined I became. I started watching videos online, engineers, electricians, even a few Tesla tech enthusiasts, breaking down how charging stations work. I learned about voltage, amperage, surge protectors, and what could happen if something suddenly overloaded the line. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't about to do anything illegal. I wasn't going to fry the entire neighborhood's power grid or cause a fire. But Karen wanted free electricity? Fine. I'd give her a charge she'd never forget. One night, while she was busy at the HOA meeting, complaining ironically about other people leaving their trash cans out too long, I took a stroll over to the community center. I knelt by the outlet, inspecting it like a curious neighbor. It was just a standard 240-volt outlet, nothing fancy. Perfect for what I had in mind. I went home, dug through my old workshop supplies, and found what I needed. A small, industrial-grade, power surge device I had used years ago during testing projects. It was designed to protect equipment by tripping circuits if voltage spiked too high, but with a few tweaks it could be persuaded to deliver one nasty jolt before shutting everything down. The confrontation. Before the storm the next evening, Karen was at it again. Tesla backed in, cable plugged, smug expression locked in place. This time I walked over casually, as if just out for a friendly chat. "Evening, Karen," I said, my tone light. She glanced at me over her shoulder. "Oh, it's you." "Yep. Just thought I'd give you a heads up," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. "You know the HOA's considering putting locks on these outlets? To stop, unauthorized charging?" Karen laughed, actually laughed, like I had just told the funniest joke she'd ever heard. "Locks? On outlets?" she said, shaking her head. "Please, they can't stop me from charging here. It's public property." "Not exactly," I said. "We all pay for this electricity. That makes it community property." She smirked. "And as a member of the community, I have every right to use it. So maybe the HOA should thank me for keeping my car green instead of whining about the power bill." There it was again. That attitude. The one that made you want to grit your teeth until your jaw ached. "Well," I said slowly, "don't be surprised if things change soon." Karen rolled her eyes. "Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, hero." She turned back to her car, dismissing me like I was nothing more than background noise. But that was fine. Because by the time the weekend rolled around, everything would change. Saturday night came. The neighborhood was quiet except for the chirping of crickets and the distant hum of air conditioners. I waited until the streetlights buzzed on, then grabbed my little device and strolled over to the community center. Karen wasn't out yet, but she would be soon. I knelt by the outlet, working quickly but carefully. My modifications wouldn't be noticeable to the casual eye. It would look like the same old outlet as always. All I had to do now was wait. Sure enough, right on schedule, I heard the soft purr of the Tesla as Karen pulled up. She parked, plugged in, and strutted back toward her house without a second glance. And me? I was sitting on my porch, coffee in hand, watching like a man waiting for fireworks. Because when that surge hit, it was going to be spectacular. It started with a faint buzz. From my porch, coffee steaming in my hand, I watched the little outlet glow faintly as Karen's Tesla pulled in the juice like it owned the place. Everything seemed normal at first. The neighborhood was calm, streetlights humming softly overhead, crickets chirping in the distance. Then it happened. A sharp pop cracked through the night air, followed by a flash of blue light from the outlet. The Tesla's dashboard lights flickered like a dying Christmas tree. A loud electronic beep, beep, beep echoed as the car's alarm system freaked out, and then silence. Complete, eerie silence. Karen came running out of her house in silk pajamas, phone in hand, confusion plastered across her face. "What the hell?" she shouted, sprinting toward the car. The Tesla's screen was black. The charging cable hung limp like a dead snake. She jabbed at the door handle. Nothing. Tesla doors need power to open when the battery's shot, and right now, hers was as dead as a doornail. I sipped my coffee slowly, hiding the smirk tugging at my lips. "Something wrong, Karen?" I called out casually. She spun on me, eyes blazing. "Did you see that? The outlet just fried my car. What kind of cheap wiring is this?" I shrugged. "Looked like a power surge. Weird, huh?" Karen was fuming. She pulled out her phone, muttering under her breath, pacing like a woman on the edge. I could practically see the HOA complaint forming in her mind like storm clouds gathering before a hurricane. By now, lights were flicking on in nearby houses. Curtains rustled, neighbors peeked out like spectators gathering for a free show. Dave, the HOA president, wandered over in his bathrobe, yawning. "What's going on?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. Karen whipped around like a viper. "What's going on is your stupid outlet just fried my Tesla." Dave blinked. "The outlet?" "Yes, the outlet," Karen snapped. "I was charging my car like I always do, and then..." She waved dramatically toward the smoking charger. This happened. I demand the HOA pay for this damage." Now, Dave's no genius, but even he wasn't going to take that bait right away. Karen, HOA outlets aren't meant for car charging. We told you that." Karen stomped her foot like a child. "That doesn't matter. It's still community property. That means you're responsible." I nearly laughed out loud. Responsible? For a car she had no right charging here in the first place? As neighbors gathered, murmuring among themselves, I stayed leaning casually on my porch rail. The picture of innocence. "Power surges happen," I said with a shrug. Could have been the grid. Could have been her car. Could have been anything, really. Karen turned on me. "Oh, don't act like you don't know. You've been whining about me charging here since day one." I raised my eyebrows. "I said it wasn't fair to everyone else. Didn't say I'd sabotage your car." Her eyes narrowed like she was trying to read my soul, but there was no proof, nothing she could pin on me. And oh, the satisfaction of watching her sputter with rage, knowing she couldn't do a damn thing about it. By now, the Tesla sat there like a giant paperweight, screen black, doors dead, charging, cable useless. Karen was on the phone with Tesla support, pacing, shouting, demanding someone come out right now to fix it. The neighbors whispered among themselves, some hiding smirks behind their hands. Everyone knew Karen had been milking that outlet for free power for weeks. And now? Now she wanted the HOA to cough up money for her own arrogance. Dave finally spoke, voice firm for the first time since I'd met him. "Karen," he said, "this is exactly why we told you to stop using the outlet. It's not designed for car charging. If something happened to your vehicle, that's on you." Karen's jaw dropped. "On me? Are you kidding? I pay my dues." "And those dues," Dave said calmly, "do not cover unauthorized use of HOA property. This will have to be discussed at the next meeting." Karen looked like she was about to explode. Her face turned red, her hands flailed as she shouted about lawyers, lawsuits, consumer rights, everything she could think of. But deep down, she knew she had no case. Eventually, the crowd dispersed. Karen stomped back to her house, phone glued to her ear, promising someone on the other end she was going to make the HOA pay. The Tesla sat there, dark and lifeless, a monument to her arrogance. And me? I went inside, poured myself another coffee, and smiled. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The morning after the Tesla incident, as the neighbors had already started calling it, the entire neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Word. Spread like wildfire, Karen's beloved electric chariot had gone from 0 to fried in under 10 seconds, and now she was on the warpath. By 7 a.m., she was outside, pacing her driveway with sunglasses on, phone in one hand, coffee cup in the key, other barking orders to anyone who would listen. "I don't care what it costs," she shouted into the phone. "I need someone out here today. My car is my livelihood. No, I don't want to wait 3 weeks for a service appointment." Neighbors walking their dogs slowed down just to eavesdrop. People watering their lawns lingered longer than necessary. Even the mailman stopped to watch for a minute before moving on. Karen thrived on attention, and right now, she was the center of the neighborhood universe. By noon, Karen had already called an emergency HOA meeting. Dave, the ever-exasperated president, reluctantly agreed because, as he said, Karen won't shut up until we do. The meeting took place in the community center, the same building whose outlet had delivered the fatal jolt to Karen's Tesla. I showed up early, as did most of the neighbors because, let's be honest, nobody wanted to miss this circus. Karen marched in like a general preparing for battle. She slapped a stack of papers onto the table in front of Dave. "I've spoken to my lawyer," she announced dramatically. "And if the HOA doesn't agree to pay for the damages to my car, I will be filing a lawsuit for negligence, property damage, and emotional distress." I nearly choked trying to hold back laughter. Emotional distress? From a dead battery? Dave sighed, rubbing his temples. "Karen, we've been over this. That outlet wasn't installed for car charging. You were told multiple times to stop using it. The HOA isn't liable." Karen's eyes blazed. "It's community property. Community property means shared responsibility. That outlet wasn't marked as off-limits. There was no sign, no lock, nothing." "That's negligence." One of the neighbors, a guy named Mark, spoke up from the back. "Pretty sure common sense is supposed to kick in at some point." A ripple of laughter spread through the room. Karen spun around like she was about to bite his head off. "This isn't funny," she snapped. "That car cost me nearly $80,000. And now the battery's fried because this HOA can't maintain a simple electrical outlet?" Dave cleared his throat. "Tesla support already told you it was likely a surge from improper charging, right?" Karen's jaw tightened. "They said it might be, but it doesn't matter. The HOA allowed this to happen. That makes you responsible." The room fell silent for a moment. Then Dave, to his credit, finally grew a spine. "Karen," he said firmly, "you broke the rules. You used HOA property in a way it wasn't intended to be used after being told not to. We're not paying for your car. End of discussion." Karen's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "This isn't over," she hissed, and with that she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. After the meeting, the neighborhood split into two camps. On one side, you had Karen's small band of sympathizers, the ones who either feared her wrath or secretly enjoyed watching chaos unfold. On the other side, you had the majority, people who were sick of her entitlement and wanted nothing more than for her to pack up and move somewhere else. Every day after that meeting felt like a standoff. Karen would glare at anyone who so much as looked in her direction. She left angry notes on the HOA bulletin board demanding justice. She even started walking around with a clipboard writing down violations on other people's properties like she was some self-appointed sheriff. One evening, I caught her taking pictures of my lawn. "Karen," I called out from my porch, "what exactly are you doing?" "Documenting," she said without looking up. "Documenting what?" "Rule violations," she said flatly. "For the next HOA meeting." I laughed. "Good luck with that." She glared at me. "You think this is funny? You're going to regret laughing when this neighborhood falls apart because of people like you." "Oh, trust me," I said, sipping my coffee. "I'm looking forward to the next meeting." A few days later, things escalated even further. Karen had apparently convinced some lawyer friend to send the HOA a threatening letter. It was full of legal jargon about liability, duty of care, and financial restitution. Dave read it out loud at the next HOA meeting, rolling his eyes the whole time. She really thinks she can win this, he muttered. The HOA voted unanimously to ignore the threat. Karen lost her mind. You can't just ignore a legal notice, she shouted. Pretty sure we can when it's nonsense, Mark said from the back again. The neighbors laughed. Karen didn't. Watching all this unfold, I started thinking. Karen wasn't just entitled, she was vindictive. And if she kept escalating, she might actually drag this whole neighborhood into a real legal mess. So I decided it was time to end this once and for all. No, not with violence. Not even with another power surge. Something better, something permanent. Karen thought she could bully everyone into submission. What she didn't realize was that some of us had far more patience and far better planning skills than she did. And I had just the plan in mind. After the lawyer's letter fiasco, the neighborhood felt like it was living in a Cold War. Karen was on edge, stomping around like a dictator whose power was slipping. The HOA ignored her threats. The neighbors mocked her behind her back. And her Tesla sat in the driveway like a giant red paperweight because the replacement battery still hadn't arrived. But I knew Karen, she wasn't the type to give up. She was waiting for her moment to strike back, and that's when I decided it was time for her reign of terror to end, once and for all. The HOA had scheduled the next big meeting for Friday night. Karen had promised to bring evidence of all the so-called rule violations she had documented with her precious clipboard. She'd been sneaking around for days, taking pictures of trash cans, overgrown lawns, even a kid's bicycle left on the sidewalk. Her goal was obvious. Bury the HOA in complaints until they caved to her demands about the Tesla. But she didn't. No, I had been planning something better. See, Karen's arrogance wasn't just about free electricity or HOA power plays. It was about control. She wanted everyone to feel like she ran the place. So I came up with a plan that would make sure Karen never pulled this stunt again. Something public, something permanent, and it started with the Tesla. The day before the meeting, I paid a little visit to an old friend who worked as an electrician. I told him I wanted to borrow a few things for a demonstration about power safety at the HOA meeting. It wasn't a lie, technically. By the time Friday night rolled around, I had everything I needed. A portable power meter, a small breaker, switch, and a way to make Karen's beloved Tesla the star of the show. The meeting started like any other, with Dave trying and failing to keep order while Karen marched in with a stack of papers thick enough to kill a small animal. I have. Here, she announced dramatically, proof of over 50 rule violations in this neighborhood. And until the HOA agrees to compensate me for my damages, I will be pursuing action against every single one of you for failure to maintain standards. The neighbors groaned. One guy actually booed. Dave held up his hand. Karen, we've been through this. The HOA isn't paying for your car, period. Karen slammed her papers on the table. Then maybe the HOA will enjoy explaining to a judge why this neighborhood has turned into a disaster zone under its so-called leadership. She was mid-rant when I stood up. Actually, I said loudly, cutting her off, this might be a good time to talk about electrical safety. The room went quiet. Karen glared at me. What are you talking about? I held up the power meter and breaker switch. A lot of folks here don't understand how dangerous it can be to use power sources incorrectly, like plugging in high-voltage equipment where it doesn't belong. Karen folded her arms. Oh, please. This is about me again, isn't it? Not at all, I said smoothly. This is about showing everyone why rules exist in the first place. In fact, I was hoping to use your Tesla for a quick demonstration. Karen blinked. My Tesla? Sure, I said. It's the perfect example. We can show how power surges happen, why it's dangerous, and why outlets need to be used correctly. Totally educational. The neighbors smirked. Dave shrugged. Sounds useful. Karen hesitated, clearly torn between her desire for control and her suspicion that I was up to something. But with the whole room watching, she finally said, Fine, whatever. Show them. We all went outside where her Tesla sat gleaming under the streetlights, its new battery finally installed the day before. I hooked up the power meter, made a big show of explaining voltage and amperage, throwing in enough technical jargon to sound impressive. Then came the breaker switch. Sometimes, I explained loudly, a sudden power surge can fry sensitive equipment. That's why using the wrong outlet can be catastrophic. Karen rolled her eyes. Get on with it. I smiled. Of course. I flipped the breaker. The Tesla's lights flickered. Its alarm blared. And then, in front of the entire HOA, the car's charging system shut down completely. With a loud, satisfying pop, smoke curled from the charger port. The neighbors gasped. Someone laughed. Karen screamed. You idiot! She shrieked, running toward the car. What did you do? Just demonstrated what happens when you use equipment improperly, I said calmly. Exactly the point I was making. You sabotaged my car, she screamed. I held up the power meter. Actually, this shows the surge came from the car's system itself. Not the outlet. Not me. Just improper use. The neighbors were eating it up. Phones were out. People were filming. Dave finally spoke. Karen, this is exactly why we told you to stop using the HOA outlets in the first place. You've been warned over and over. Karen was shaking with rage. You're all going to pay for this! But she didn't file another complaint because within a week, the videos from that night were all over the neighborhood Facebook group. People laughed about it for months. And Karen, she sold the Tesla. And then finally, she sold the house. The neighborhood threw a block party the day the moving truck pulled away. And that, folks, was the day Karen's Tesla dreams went up in smoke. Literally. From free electricity to lawsuits to her ultimate downfall, the neighborhood finally got the peace it deserved. If you enjoyed watching Karen's empire crumble, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hidden Compass Stories for more real-life drama, HOA battles, and wild tales of karma served cold. Because here, the stories never stop.